Welcome back to the Marty and Jaden Show. We just finished reading Dune, the book, and we're going to give a review of it.
Yeah, our official review of this classic book that was written 150,000 years ago.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Back in the 70s, which is so old.
Yeah.
But
literally a classic, literally inspired movies like Star Wars.
Yeah, huge movies, huge, like, so much content in the sci-fi, science fiction world has come from beginnings in this book. And authors that have come into the space have read Dune and been inspired by it. So crazy to go back and read that source material. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And it's a good experience with the Dune movies coming out in this, like, these days, this year.
I know. I really enjoyed it. I actually started with the movie and then found my way, part one of Dune, then found my way to the book because I'm like, I gotta find out more about this thing. This is one of the craziest movies I've ever seen.
You loved the movie when it came out. I was a little more hesitant. Yes. Then you read the book, and then you convinced me to read the book, and that brings us to here.
Yeah, and you did like the movie a lot better the second time around.
Yes, I liked the movie a lot better the second time, and I think that's going to weigh heavily into my review. But at the very end of this video, we'll talk about our final number reviews, whether we recommend it. So stay to the end. Make sure you grab that final review recommendation.
So what did you think, Jaden? What did you like about this book? What did you not like?
So we've done a few of these reviews up to this point on the channel, and I think one thing that I like to talk about as an emphasis for me is how well that they can build characters that I can truly see and like imagine as a character, and not characters that are wishy-washy and changing their ideals all over the place. They have to be characters that exist, that truly do what you expect them to do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they go outside of that, but it has to be part of the plot. I think it's a very, very powerful book to do that with. He
does a great job with it because he's got a lot of religion involved that he's created for the book. He's got cultures built around a whole ecosystem of like water and heat. And
he's built an entire universe off of the world building that he's done. And it's similar to like you would think with a Star Wars and another where there's space travel involved. There's so much stuff that you're like, man, in the 70s, like to be thinking through all those nuances of space travel.
Yeah, and it's not just the world that he's built with the different like species or cultures or places. He's the political world that he's built as well. It's just so deep. It's definitely the deepest political book I've ever read. Like
It's up there for sure. I know we get close to that with a lot of Brandon Sanderson's recent stuff. I think it's really cool but this is, I would say you're right that there's a lot more actors involved. There's like the emperor, the empire, there's other high houses, there's barons, there's, groups of militias. It's like a crazy interaction between everyone.
To the point where you cannot be casually listening to this book.
No way.
You have to be catching every single little word that they're saying. Like, okay, who said this? Who said that? And you have to remember these things as you're continuing on to really grasp the full story of what's going on.
2 times during this book, I said, okay, I need to just catch up a little bit. I'm like, this part's getting a little dry. I'll just skip forward a little. I skip forward. I'm like, I don't even know
skipped forward?
I don't even know what book I'm reading anymore.
You skip back.
Oh yeah. Both times I had to go back further than I had skipped from because I'm like, oh, okay, I need to get my levels set again. I need to remember who everybody is. Like, people are tripping on acid in this.
I mean, really.
There's all kinds of crazy stuff with the psychedelics and the element of religion they add to the book. So yeah. Another witness that you should not be skipping ahead in this book.
That's funny.
Not recommended.
I want to know if that's going to affect your final rating. That you got to points where you felt like you needed to skip ahead.
Yeah, it probably will.
Yeah. All right. Fascinating.
Sneak preview of 10 minutes from now.
Yeah, I agree. The character building in this book is phenomenal. I love the characters. Duke Leto Atreides is one of my favorite characters in this book. I love how they talk about he is a very serious man. He's very focused. But he's also has an amazing leadership ability.
Bravery, courageous, yeah.
You'll find that in all these other reviews that I do, I love stories that have amazing leaders. And I am inspired by them. Even though they're fictional characters. It's amazing how you can be inspired by people like that.
There's a lot of inspiration that comes from reading these stories and really just diving deeper into them with a book that you can than a movie. So again, I would definitely rate the book. I would rate it higher than the movie for that reason, because there's a lot of context you miss. Yep. And I think having read it, it's like, okay, that all makes so much more sense now. And the fact that he wrote in a lot of those things, like the spice in the desert, like that's just such a random element, like to be able to just imagine that and build this whole ecosystem around it is incredible. And it just feels like you're just constantly discovering new elements of the world and how it works and why it's that way and what secrets it lie underneath the surface. And just to have all of that depth of story and to feel like you're not even exhausting all of it when you read the whole book. You're like, there's still stuff in his head that I just don't know about yet.
Yes. I am not giving my final rating yet, but before we go any further, if you have not read this book and you liked the movie, you have to read this book.
Oh, 100%. 100%. If you liked the movie, you got to get the book.
Yeah, the book, it'll get you a lot deeper into everything that you're wanting to know, like why in the world is having crazy visions about like random things throughout the book, throughout the movie, and who are the Bene Gesserit and his mom, and how do they all play into these things. It's just so much deeper on another level that you just get to enjoy.
There's so much. I had to watch the movie twice to get to the point where I'm like, I like that movie. So if that was the case, and then I read the book, and it just keeps getting better from there. So diving into the world of Dune is fantastic, and I would recommend it.
Okay, Jaden, I'm going to ask you, what would you rate this book?
I would rate this book a 9.1.
Ooh, a 9.1. Yep. Give me why.
Okay, so it's definitely in the 9s. So there's, little buckets of ratings. It's in the 9s because it definitely earns the right to be a classic. Yep. And I think that's cool, all in and of itself. I think the world building is easily the strongest element of this. I love the complexities of it. I love the politics. I love the just the different characters, the different desires and ideas, and they all conflict and all this conflict with all the different characters is cool. I think that brings it into the 9s. I think it doesn't quite get into the high 9s. I think there are some elements of the story that feel a little bit...
drag on.
They do drag on. Some elements of the culture that they just rehash too many times.
Yeah. To the point where you wanted to skip ahead.
I did. I skipped a couple of times. Like sometimes the stuff at the beginning of the chapters was cool, and sometimes it was like a bit more of a hassle than like a benefit to the book. And I do think that they throw a little bit too much of the like psychedelic nature. And for
gets
me,
a little
I was
weird.
just like, you're so many levels deep into this. Like I barely made it through Inception. So sometimes it's too much for me. But I think it's earned comfortably a spot in the 9s, but it's in the low 9s for that reason.
Yep. I really want to put it in the 9s because I am so biased by a good finish for a book. And this book finishes strong.
Yeah.
It finishes really well. But I always have to stop and remind myself, calm down. That was only like the last like 4 hours of the book, maybe 2 hours to be honest. And the whole rest of the book has to be given consideration as well. I'm going to be specific like you are on the decimal points here.
Well done. I'm proud of you.
I know. I'm going to give this an 8.7.
Okay.
Of a book. And
interesting.
It's because, same thing as you were saying, I feel like the beginning of this book drags on in a lot of different places. It's very easy to zone out and miss important parts because it's kind of dragging on. It may be because I saw the movie first. And for me, at least, I thought the movie was so similar to the book that it almost felt word for word the same in a lot of places, where I was almost bored by the book because I'm like, I already know what happened from the movie.
And credit to the directors for that. I think.
Which I think is amazing. But it also kind of goes back to, this is my second time reading this book, seeing the movie, then reading the book also shows the same thing, that this has less rereadability than I thought it would. If you already know the story, then it doesn't make it as exciting as than the first time.
And some books are very rereadable.
Yes, some books are very rereadable. And this one, I remember the first time I got to the ending of this book, I was hit so impactfully about this. I've said this before, this story I feel like was written as like a modern day tragedy in my mind. And this book hits hard for the end of it. The second time I read it, it did not hit near as hard as it did for the first time.
That's an interesting piece of context, one that I wouldn't have. So 8.7,
yes,
9.1, ends us with an 8.9 overall rating, just under that 9 threshold. So, brutal. But for the record, and on this channel, our recommendations are, if it's above a 7, kind of 7.5 area, it's a would recommend. So an 8.9 is strongly in that would recommend band. So don't feel like it's a terrible rating. We're not those, 5 stars or nothing. That's a joke.
Yep.
So 8.9 is our final rating for Dune, and we would say definitely recommend to read.
Pick up the book, read it before the movie comes out, read it after the movie comes out. It's a classic. There's a reason why people love it.
And let us know what you think. If you've already read it and you're just curious for our recommendation, what did you think about the book? What would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, including decimal places, please, because this is formal. And let us know if you have any questions for us, anything we can dive into. We love reading the comment sections and interacting with you guys on those videos. So let's see it.